Welcome to the wonderful world of Ghost Horse Hollow. I'm your host, Severn Williamson, and this is my Family Book Nook. My Family Book Nook podcast is brought to you by the Owsley County Public Library in Boonville, Kentucky, and by Jackson Energy, a Touchstone Energy cooperative, and by Ghost Horse Gifts, featuring the fine intaglio jewelry and gemstone sculpture of artisan Jack Williamson, on the web at www.etsy.com/shop/ghosthorse-gifts. My Family Book Nook features the saga of the McKinnon homesteaders 100 years in the future in the Appalachian wilderness. Listeners may wish to follow along in the fairy lore of Ghost Horse Hollow, available on Amazon Books and Kindle Readers, starting with Book 1, Turn of the Blade. My Family Book Nook also shares stories, myths, and legends from around the globe in support of world literacy, conservation, and cultural exchange. Our next story in support of literacy, conservation, and cultural exchange is Persephone and the Pomegranate Seeds. This is an ancient Greek myth designed to explain the changing seasons of a temperate climate. But the story holds even more psychological riches as it deals with the loss of innocence, the loss of a child to marriage, the trauma of abduction, and the loneliness of existence without love, laughter, and play, despite all the riches and power of the lower world. Listen for the changes and compromises each of the major characters must make. Long, long ago, when the people of Greece worshipped the gods and goddesses of cloud-wrapped Mount Olympus, and the thunderbolts of mighty Zeus shook the heavens, a young maiden of exceptional beauty and grace played along the shores of the salty sea. Azure blue were the waves before her, and lemon green the fertile fields beyond her gaze. Her emerald eyes and soft brown ringlets shone with an innocent light, full of cheer and heartfelt charity. For she was none other than Persephone, the daughter of Mother Demeter, the goddess of golden grain and sweet grapes upon the vine. Bronze was the maiden's complexion, like the polished shield of a seasoned warrior, sun-kissed and rosy with health. Delightful was her laughter, so much so that the birds in the skies would stop to listen to her chatter, adding their chirps and coos to her bright song. The surface of the earth worshipped the goddess Demeter, and she in turn took care of the goodly meadows, groves, and gardens. The heads of the heavy grain bent in her direction as she passed by, and the matted vines parted before her golden sandals. Even the dense woodlands, with their wild, bubbling pools and ancient springs, delighted in Demeter's thriving presence. On this fatal day, late in the spring of the year, Persephone was weaving wreaths of delicate flowers for her sea-nymph companions. The foamy waves of Poseidon's realm spattered upon the pebbly shoreline and drove the maiden further inland in search of more radiant and colorful petals. Reaching for tempting blossoms to fill her basket, Persephone fastened her starry-eyed gaze on a most sumptuous bush emblazoned with crimson flowers. The girl gathered the fragrant treasures, then tugged determinedly at the roots of the plant. From deep inside the earth, a rumbling and grumbling shook the ground beneath the maiden's slender feet. Out of the bowels of the dirt sprang a chariot of iron and bronze, drawn by 4 black steeds with fiery breath and flaming eyes. Their hooves smacked the stones. Sparks flew in all directions, threatening to set the fire to the steed's scorched and broken path. "Hold there, Midas, Gorgon, Sapphire, and Vandal!" cried a rough, deep voice. "Attend this fair maiden, whose locks are like the ringlets of the vines of juicy grapes, and whose lips are red like the nectar of the ripest plums. Hear me," the voice commanded. "I am the god of the Underworld, Hades, ruler of the realm of the dead and fallen. Dark is my kingdom indeed, but thou, bright daughter of the earth's bounty, will bring joy and light to my fathomless realm. Come, be my bride, and linger in the remote splendor of my crystal and bejeweled palace. Not even the diamond lanterns of my dining hall compare to the shining brightness of thine eyes." So saying, the god of darkness snatched the trembling Persephone to his muscled side and tightly wrapped her in his blue-black cloak. The dreadful steeds wheeled at their master's lashes of their thrice-braided reins, plunging once more into the depths of the earth, where coal, gold, copper, rivers of oil, and foul-smelling sulphur awaited them. Nothing was left to indicate Persephone's presence in the rich meadow, save her glittering girdle of tiny seed beads and chipped shells. Crimson petals dotted the scene, but Hades had artfully sealed the rift in the ground, like a door shut forever and a day. As the sun's light lingered, and shadows crisscrossed the beaches and the grassy fields, Demeter and the sea nymphs called and called for fair Persephone. But alas, the pleasant tones of the earth goddess's child were heard no more. Over and over the desperate mother cried aloud for her daughter, growing more frantic as the night wore on. By morning Demeter was beside herself, wandering here and there, inquiring as to the whereabouts of her dear offspring. High over the rocky points and low between the cliffs and vales, she sought for the music of her heart, for the joy of her existence, her beloved child. Long did she walk the earth in despair, disguised as an old nursemaid, tired and tragic, until at last she came to a crumbling stone on the side of the road and sat down to rest. Gone were her golden goddess robes and majestic belt or girdle of wide, colorful silks. No one suspected her immortal heritage. Thus did a wandering goat herder and his kindly daughter find the Lady Demeter, and, crying with the troubled woman, asked her the reason for her sorrows. "I have lost my only child," the goddess moaned, "and do not know her dwelling place, so that I might rescue her from what I fear may be a savage fate and ease her fears, ever to rejoice once more in my arms." "This is indeed troubling," agreed the herdsman. "Come, old mother, and rest with my family and household. Share our humble hearth and cottage. Do not linger beside the road. Night is falling, and the paths are unsafe. Thieves roam the countryside, looking for food and drink. Our harvest has been poor this year, but you are welcome to what little bread and fruits we have." "What be thy name, good fellow?" asked the Lady Demeter in disguise. "I am called Celius, and we are near the village of Eleusis. Come, come, we must hurry. My son is terribly ill, and we are expected home before dusk." Celius, his daughter, and the goddess dressed as a midwife arrived at the cottage and were greeted with distressing news. Triptolemus, Celius's young son, had taken a turn for the worse during his father's absence. Pale and feverish, the boy lay on a bed of twigs covered with sheepskins. Demeter wasted no time, and lightly kissed the sickened child upon the lips, and held him in her loving arms. Happy were the onlookers, especially Triptolemus's mother and father, when the boy revived, and the sweat of cold death left his brow. The woman of the cottage begged the stranger to remain and take Triptolemus as her charge, since the midwife appeared to be without family or station. Demeter surprisingly agreed, only requiring that she be left alone to care for the boy and to raise him in her own way. Celeus and his wife agreed, so delighted they were with their son's progress. They sat down together to share their humble meal of apples, goat cheese, flatbread, and honeycomb. Days passed, and weeks wore into months. The boy in Demeter's care grew strong, agile, full of health and vigor. As he progressed, changing in size and alertness, Celeus's wife grew curious. One night, when the wind was particularly keen outside the cottage, she arose and crept to the hearth fire, only to witness a most alarming sight. There the goddess had anointed Triptolemus from head to toe with magic oil, and had placed him in the coals of the fire. Demeter had covered the toddler with ashes, and was quietly spinning yarn beside the stones. The mother rushed forward from her hiding place and snatched Triptolemus from the coals. He appeared completely unharmed and smiled reassuringly. The goddess, however, scowled in disappointment and told the frightened mother that had she left the boy alone, he would have gained immortality. Demeter did promise the family that their son would grow to be exceptionally strong and useful, for he would introduce the plow to the world and change the course of agriculture for all time. With this promise, as a fitting reward for Celeus's compassion and the kindness shown to her by the family, the goddess revealed herself in all her splendor. She strode from the cottage in her fine cloth and glittering jewels, and called for her chariot. Down from the stormy clouds descended a transport of polished cedar wood and golden vines. It was drawn by 2 dragons, whose flames pierced the night. High in the sky the goddess rose, once more in search of Persephone and the dreaded entrance to the lower kingdoms of coal and ash. After many wanderings and great distress, she came to the land of Sicily, and stood beside the banks of the river Severn. She was not far from the spot where her daughter had been snatched by the god of the dead, and quite close to the start of her original journey. "Have you seen my daughter?" Demeter asked a bubbling water nymph in a nearby forest pool. "No, great lady, I have not seen her with my own eyes, but my waters flow deep within the cavernous world below," replied the nymph. Down, down Persephone traveled in the arms of the dark Hades, most unwillingly, past the river Styx, whose murky waters are guarded by Chiron, ferryman of the boat of shades. But though her captor tried to persuade her to drink from the dank waters in order to forget her former life, Persephone insisted on remembering you and all the dear elements of this upper world. Past the fearsome hound, Cerberus, guardian of the Underworld's massive gates, Hades took your daughter to be his bride. But even the 3-headed dog wagged his serpent tail at your dear maiden child. Onward, the chariot of iron and bronze took Persephone to the palace of black marble, copper, and obsidian. To my knowledge, she dwells there still. But fear not, your child still remembers the world above, and nothing Hades can do will tempt her to forsake her love or renounce her joy in the world that she once cherished. This part of my Family Book Nook podcast is dedicated to world conservation. Everyone can make a difference by restoring the world's forests, conserving energy, recycling, developing and sharing green technologies, farming organically, preserving wilderness, and protecting our pollinators. To live in harmony with the earth is to respect the sacred hoop of life. And now our adventure continues. Upon hearing this distressing news, Lady Demeter cast herself to the ground and wept tears of fright and sorrow for her daughter. Long she continued to wander in search of means to enter the underground kingdom and reclaim her child. Weeping and moaning, she persisted in her mission until the fields and gardens, vineyards and orchards began to wither and choke with neglect. Men, women, and children cried out with hunger, and turmoil shook the land as families snatched what meager stores they could procure from one another. Apollo in his sunlit chariot, and his sister Artemis in her moonbeam orb, did look down upon the earth, and take pity on the poor and starving humans. All the fields lay scorched, as if the steeds of Hades had passed by. News of the plight of the earth reached old Zeus's ears. His heart was moved by the death and decay that spread to the far horizons. Besides, the people were abandoning the temples and railing against Olympus for their many troubles. Calling upon the swift messenger of the gods and goddesses, bold Hermes, Zeus commanded him to make his way to the realm of the dead and consult with Zeus's brother Hades. But before Hermes could depart the cloudy realm of Mount Olympus with his winged sandals and winged helmet to speed his journey, the Fates reminded thunderbolt-wielding Zeus that Persephone would not be allowed to return to her mother's arms if she had eaten or drunk from the banquet table of the black-bearded Hades. Far, far below the surface of the pebbly shores and scorched gardens, the god of the underworld received the handsome Hermes and listened carefully to Zeus's demands. I shall return my bride to the land of the living if she has not eaten or drunk from my fine table set with gold and silver platters, diamond lanterns, and jeweled cloths. We shall see. Persephone, hast thou eaten or drunk whilst thou hast been in my realm? Hades asked quietly of the lovely maiden. No, my lord, she replied honestly, save I forget from whence I came. But this morning I was so hungry I ate 6 pomegranate seeds, shriveled and old. Then she may return to her mother above, and once more bless the harvest of the vines and ripening of grain, declared Hermes. No, not entirely, Hades interrupted the hasty departure of his rosy bride. For the 6 seeds she hath consumed, I shall claim her to be by my side, here in the realm of the dead, for 6 months of the year. The goddess Demeter may keep her the rest of the year. 6 months below, and 6 months above, so the Fates would have it. When Hermes and Persephone flew past the gates of the underworld and re-entered the land of the sun and moon, Hades sighed. He had grown fond of his green-eyed, playful maiden, with a voice as sweet as a lark and an embrace as gentle as that of a morning dove. In the dark and cold he brooded, waiting his turn to awaken and light his palace in the fall and winter of the year. Persephone and Demeter rejoiced in one another's arms, only as mother and daughter are wont to do when separated by a season of cold. Demeter once more nurtured the forests, the vineyards, the gourds, the bees, the olive branches, and the flowers of the field. The long-awaited harvest from every garden far and wide beneath Zeus's heaven was plentiful. The bounty was shared throughout the land, and seeds were stored in abundance for next year's crops. Persephone ran and played in the meadows and helped each farm family with gathering wildflowers, grapes, sweet honey, and tasty olives. Triptolemus grew to manhood and helped the sower of seeds to turn the fertile earth with the first plow. He was not immortal, but died a hero's death, beloved by his family. The site of Eleusis, near where Mother Demeter rested on the rock beside the road, flourished, and the Eleusinian mysteries were introduced in secret celebration of the goddess of the bountiful earth. To this day, we celebrate 6 months of growth and 6 months of withering and quiet, as Persephone climbs aboard the chariot of iron and bronze, pulled by the 4 black fiery steeds, and makes her way to the land of the dead and the fallen. But Demeter calls for her child each spring, and the earth gives up the dark queen, bride of Hades, to the delight of all. Thank you for listening to my Family Book Nook podcast. Subscribe to our blog at myfamilybooknook.blogspot.com and follow us on Facebook, Pinterest, and YouTube at Ghost Horse Hollow and Ghost Horse Gift Gallery. To advertise with my Family Book Nook, contact Podbean's Pod Ads program for more information. Join us each Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern Time USA for another episode in the exciting saga of the McKinnon Homesteaders, as well as stories from around the globe. Podbean.com podcasts are available through a convenient app on your PC, tablet, or cell phone. Listen anytime. We appreciate your sharing my Family Book Nook episodes with your friends and family on social media. Watch it grow. Special thanks to the lovely Price Sisters on the web at thepricesisters.com for our closing music. Follow me on Instagram _ghost_horse. This is Anne Severn Williamson, and it's been a pleasure